You have found Firebirds Weekly, a show about everything Firebirds. Thank you for stopping by. Game analysis, highlights, stats and trends. Firebirds Weekly, beyond the headline. Tonight's guest is Gary Compton, Director of Football Operations, AF1. Here are your hosts, Adam Samroff, Chris Sipperly.
Good evening. Welcome to the latest edition of Firebirds Weekly. We're a semi-weekly show that talks everything about the Albany Firebirds as well as the league the Albany Firebirds belong to, which is AF1. I'm co-host Chris Sipperly. I'm joined by my other host, Adam Samroff, and tonight's guest is Gary Compton. Thanks for joining us tonight, Gary.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely.
We have a very, very special guest here in Mr. Compton, the Director of Football Operations for the Arena League, AF1 League. And Gary, I just wanted to, welcome you to the show and, just get an idea of who you are. Tell our Arena League fans here in Albany and all over the league from coast to coast, tell them who you are and your foray into this game we all love.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. So born and raised in Texas, played college ball at East Texas State University, which is now called Texas A&M of Commerce, which just switched the name to East Texas A&M. Thank goodness for that. We always like to have the old ET back. Played 4 years there, was fortunate enough to leave there as all-time leading receiver, still hold that record after 34 years, and made it to the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers. Was there with the Niners through training camp, got released, spent some time up in the CFL with Edmonton, bounced around to the old spring league back when they had all the teams in, California and places like that. Couldn't land anywhere with that. So trying to decide what happened, what would happen, and jumped on with an arena team in Dallas. Obviously, we know arena football, was kicking everything around new back in 87. And I joined the Dallas Texans in 92. I was in Dallas in 92 and 93 playing there. Obviously, the old arena days and all that, franchises came and went, as fast as, strip malls going up nowadays. Mm-hmm. And so we were there in Dallas for 2 years. And then the franchise moved to Fort Worth. So I moved with the franchise in Fort Worth. We spent 1 year there. I was very unfortunate with that. We had a bad ownership group, kind of with some things, and that team disbanded. Mm-hmm. I became a dispersal draft pick for Milwaukee. As we all know, in 1994, Milwaukee went 0-14. Became a dispersal draft pick, like I said, here in Milwaukee and moved up here in 95. I spent from 95 through 2001 here in Milwaukee, and pretty much where I made my name to fame in the AFL. Left there, spent some time in Grand Rapids in 02, won a championship with the Tampa Bay Storm in 03, and then finished out my career in 04 and 05 in Philly. Once I retired from that, jumped in AF2, coached for 4 or 5 years through 2010, then got out of the circuit, was kind of in the high school realm of things, running a transportation logistics business. And last year when the Arena Football League was going through all the chaos with the dynamic duo and all of that, Jerry Courage gave me a call and asked me if I wanted to go on a train ride. And when Jerry calls me, him and I have known each other for 30 plus years. We go way back, like I said, to the early 90s. I never say no to him. I never guess what he's trying to do. I just said, let's jump on board. This is a league that I made my life at. I gave a lot of blood, sweat, and tears with it. I built it. And to see it come back and see, trying to build a foundation. Unfortunately, we know what happened with it. We made it through the season, got the Arena Bowl done in the mall, the brawl in the mall, got all that done. Then because of all the right, that is kind of cool in it. But because of all of the legal issues, as you can kind of imagine, we had to take our 8 founding members and move over and create a new league that we had the trade rights and the trademarks to in the past, which is Arena Football 1, came on board with that and ready to rock and roll. That's kind of my whole way into arena football. Like I said, spent a lot of time in it, made my name in it, and just proud to be back and giving guys a chance that, I had a chance to do one time.
We'll come back to the arena because obviously that's a super, it's a long career of playing and coaching and then going and coming out of the sport and then coming back into the sport. Question I have, you said you were with San Francisco back in the 90s. Steve Young throwing you the ball during training camp?
Yeah, so, it's funny. The last pass I caught was Joe Montana's last pass before he got injured. And so he got injured. Steve Young then came in. That's when Steve Young got his start there. And, and then obviously kind of the rest was history with that. Joe ended up moving on to Kansas City, did very well there. But, yeah, that's when Steve came on board. And, just some great people. I was telling everybody, you throw out the Jerry Rice name right off the bat when you're working with him every day, and John Taylor, and you had Tom Rathman, and you had Ricky Waters, and, you had Steve, and, all of those guys. The coaching staff was Seifert, Sherm Lewis, Ray Rhodes, guy that used to coach Green Bay and then coached at Seattle. I forget his name, was our offensive Holmgren,
Yep.
Seifert. That was a group. That was a group of people that I was around. So, yeah, it was a great quality organization, but it's one of those things where, it takes a lot to get there. I have a son right now who's playing college football up at Concordia St. Paul in Minneapolis, D2 school in NSIC, and he's quarterback, redshirt sophomore, and finally got a chance to show what he could do this year. And I always tell him how hard it is when you go from high school to college. And I put this as kind of a huge perspective and kind of give it to you as a quarterback. When you're a high school quarterback, if you can throw a football and hit the door, you're pretty good. Okay. When you're a college quarterback, if you can throw a ball and hit the doorknob, you're pretty good. When you're in the NFL, if you can throw a football and hit the keyhole, you're pretty good. So you take that whole parameter and you shrink it all the way down. And it's kind of the physics of, what it takes to get to that, get to that next level. But I was very fortunate with it.
And so, to keep going with that, and I love to hear those stories because you get that, like you said, you're around Jerry Rice, every day, just soaking up that the knowledge from a Hall of Famer like that, and that leads you into the time you spent in the Arena League. Talk about so you in Milwaukee was your longest tenure. And something that we've seen here in Albany, again, with the team being in the 90s and then going away for a little while and then coming back as the Empire and now the Firebirds again, a big thing for us in our community here with guys is, guys that stick around 3, 4, 5 more years in one place. One of the fan groups does kind of like an adopt a player where, these guys are up here and they met, a lot of these guys aren't local to us up here in the Northeast. Talk about your time in Milwaukee in that 6-year period where it was like, by the end of that, you're probably one of the main vets, maybe the longest tenured vet at that point.
Yeah. When I came up, obviously, you're coming up to the Midwest here, not knowing, especially from a team that was 0-14,
Right.
With that, but Mike Trigg, who, one of my best friends who coached in the Arena League for a long time. And I obviously traveled with him, kind of all the way through as a coach, brought me up. And, it's one of those things where I got there and I wanted to build a foundation. I wanted to build my name. And how was I going to do that? Not only was I going to do that as a player, but what all could I do in the community to obviously get more people to know who you are, to get more people to recognize they want to come to the game. And I jumped on board as a full-time substitute teacher in one of the elementary schools. I had a teaching background in Texas and all of that, and, utilized that some, but I jumped on as a full-time sub in the building. And that was a great opportunity because why? You're with kids every single day. You tell kids about your story, and guess what? They got mom, dad, sister, grandma. They got all these people that want to come to the game, right? Mm-hmm. Give all the kids the free tickets they want. They can't go to a game without mom and dad. That's so right. For every ticket you're given, there's 4 or 5 being bought. And so I began to utilize that and began to stay here year round. And like I said, I vowed to the organization I would go out and do any promotions they wanted me to do. I had no issue with doing anything. I wanted to get the name out there. I wanted to get my name out there. And we built such a great brand here in Milwaukee with the Mustangs. We were, 17,000 seat arena selling out. We were like 4-12 in 95. We sold 17,000 every single week. They loved it, just like you guys up in Albany. And I'll get some Albany stories. I got some great ones over the years. But just to have that fan base, and all of that. It just drives you and it motivates you. And, it's kind of like I said, where I built everything here, and I still live here today. I came back, we moved to Indianapolis when I was playing with the Firebirds after they left Albany. They went to Indianapolis. And Coach David
that was a tough pill to swallow.
Coach David was there in 2002, and I went to Indiana. That's kind of when we started having the free agency period, and everybody started rolling in, making the money, and doing a lot of that stuff. But then I came back, and I've been in Milwaukee since 2008, and it's a great place. As crazy as it is, I still go places, and I still get recognized. It's just it's absolutely crazy.
In the community. That's
absolutely.
The difference.
That's the key. That's the key with all these players is, as we all know, these players, you can make decent money in the summertime and all of that, but you can't make a full-time living and doing all of it, and some do, some don't. But get yourself in the community, get wrapped up in the community, get everybody to know who you are, go out and do it, because it's nothing better than afterwards people are coming up on your autograph, signing things, they're buying your jersey, whatever, they know you by name. And I think that's what separates arena football in general. That's what separates it all apart, is fans get an opportunity to be so close to you as a player. They get to know you. And you don't have that in the NFL. So that's definitely what separates our game.
And we talked, obviously we talk about, NFL guys, and they all have their foundations and this and that. We talked to Sean Lockett, an offensive lineman for the Firebirds, last week, and he was talking about a foundation that a friend of his started, that he's a board member of, called Follow My Steps, and it's a thing that brings together the youth of the community in the Springfield, Mass area where he's from, and he can use his star power of being a professional football player, to bring the stories to these kids and be able to help them do what they have to do. So
absolutely.
We see that here, and we definitely see that here in Albany and in the Northeast.
You know what? And that's what it's all about now. And we see more foundations, and we see more things set up like that nowadays than you probably did 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a whole lot of that, with everything. You're basically going out and doing whatever you had to do to make a name for yourself. But we all know how the game was back then in the mid-'90s to the early 2000s. There was nothing bigger than arena football. I mean, when you turn the tube on Sunday afternoons and you're watching the Voodoo play the Rattlers, and there's 17,000 sold-out people, and you got Pat Hayden doing, play-by-play, and things like that. I mean, that's where we want to get back to, and it's going to take a long process to get there. But I think with Jerry Kurz and Jeff Fisher and all of that, and the front office staff that we have, we got all the right pieces together, and we just got to move slowly and continue to grow.
How has it been? And I don't know how much you worked specifically with him or in concert with him, but having somebody as a commissioner like Jeff Fisher, again, somebody with that NFL, the NFL experience, a name that football fans across the world know who Jeff Fisher is, being the coach of the Titans and doing what he does. Talk about the credibility he brings to say, as the leader of this is a thing, like he's putting himself on the line as well, just like you all are.
Absolutely. And I think when Jeff stepped up last year to become the interim commissioner with all of that, and Nashville was there, and he was, dealing with Nashville and all that, putting somebody like that into that spotlight, I mean, gives us instant credibility with it, like you said, with his name alone, who he is. And then with him wanting to come over, because we all said we weren't going to do this and move to another league and do everything if he wasn't involved. We all made a pact, all of us front office people, we're going to do it. We're going to do it together. And, he will do anything that we ask of him. With all of that, he was still new to the arena game and everything, but the football knowledge, I mean, I sat down in Nashville a couple hours with this guy, and we just told stories. We were telling Eddie George. He was telling me Eddie George stories, and it's so funny with all that, but he wanted to learn from me. He wanted to listen about arena football. He wanted to learn that game and all that because it was something new to him. Mm-hmm. But I think having him with us and the commissioner and all that, couldn't ask for a better person.
And your role, like you said, getting a call from Jerry and just saying, hey, you want to go on a ride with us? So tell me a little bit about what the director of football operations position is and the role you have in the whole thing of the leadership of arena football, AF1.
Okay, absolutely. So obviously, director of football ops kind of, is what it sounds like. I'm in charge of all the football ops. Okay, what does football ops mean? Coaches, players, organizations, transactions, contract signings, player movements, all of that stuff. If you look at it right now, we do weekly coaches meetings where we have the rule book. All the rule books all been redone. We have our director of officiating we have on our call each week. We're breaking the rule book down into each segment and learning and talking about the game. You have maybe the head coach in Corpus Christi never played the arena games, played the indoor game. Obviously, we know the arena game is different. When you have the nets and you have things like that, things are different. So we're getting them caught up to speed with all of that. Free agency right now, transactions, those come in. I review the contracts. I look at everything, make sure it's all correct. Sign off, send it over. So right now, it's kind of an easier grind, I guess you would say, until we get into the season. Once we get into the season, the director of football ops really kind of expands because now I've got teams that are playing one another. I'm going to be on the road, making sure organizations have things set up for game day, making sure things are set up the right way. I'm mapping my schedule out. I'm trying to get to like the Arizonas and the Orlando's and Corpus early on because it's warm down there, and then
take advantage of it. No doubt.
Get out to the Northwest a little bit because that's warm, and then come back to you guys, the East Coast, in May and everything where it's warming up. But it's a lot of fun, especially being a former player, coach, GM, and all of that, and a lot of these coaches that are established in our league now. Cedric Walker, Haran O'Neal. All of those guys, a big name to know in Nashville, hopefully soon. Coach Ware, EJ Bird, all those guys that I've known or played with. So they know the expectations of what I instill and what I want, and which makes it very, very good because, as we all know, last year, like I said, it was a train wreck.
Yeah.
People were doing whatever they wanted to do. When I came in, I sent out an email to them with a spreadsheet that I needed daily transactions. They didn't even turn in transactions last year. I had one team that had 49 players.
Holy cow.
They were just living in a hotel, doing whatever to try to get a chance. You know what I mean? So there was no structure. There was no structure. There was no anything. And so for us to come in now and have the structure that we have and everybody's accountable, we have everything set on what we're doing, and you want to have a tryout camp, you're sending all the information to me. You're letting me know who's at those camps and what's going on. It just makes it a lot easier, Christy McEwen, who's been, she's been in the Arena League for years. She started back with the Oklahoma City Yard Dogs in AF2, back when she was an intern. And then came on board with Jerry, in the late 2000s and kind of ran the league office. Phenomenal person, knows the game like the back of her hand. Then obviously Jerry, who, he didn't write the envelope, but he almost helped Foster do everything else with that. And so with us three right now in the league office, and kind of know the whole backbone of everything, like I said, I couldn't ask for a better team to work for. And then, Commissioner, being there as our figurehead.
No, that's humongously big. Like, that's big. Again, an outsider, I certainly don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think, from a fan perspective or somebody had loose knowings of what's going on, that was the biggest need was the structure and knowing how things were going to go or how things weren't going to go or how things, had to go or don't ask that question now because you already know the answer. Like those sort of things, like where it was just like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And here's the goal.
Absolutely. And if you
don't, for a few weeks that went away.
Right. And if you don't do it the right way, there's, ramifications for you not doing it. Just like with my coaches, we have a coaches call that's set every day, every Tuesday at 2:00. If you're late, slap you on the hand the first time, second time you get a verbal warning, the third time you get fined. And you know what? 1:54, I turn it on and everybody's ready to go. But it's expectations. Okay. And you want those coaches to be able to filter that down to their players and their organization, because if you walk into Albany and you see something and you go into Orlando and you see something, you should almost see it identical. Everything should be taught the right way from the front office all the way down. That's why we had Arena Football University to teach these people the expectations and what's expected of you from the sales department to the marketing department to the social media to the coaches all the way down to the players. Absolutely.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. That's something that I'm just hearing now for the first time, and it sounds like it's something to really take it kind of out of the Wild West, for lack of a better term, to now the idea is you're going to have 12 teams, 3 divisions, and like you said, doesn't matter if you're in Albany, Billings, Orlando, Nashville, everything should look the same in terms of how these organizations work. So talk about that and how you guys came up with this Arena League University and bringing it to the organizations.
Absolutely. So obviously we've had it for years. When we, back in the AFL days, Jerry actually got this model from McDonald's. McDonald's did a McDonald's University. Because what is it? Whether you walk into McDonald's in Albany, you walk into McDonald's in China, it's the same. You know what I mean? So we wanted to have somewhere we had structure and everything was being done the same. Everybody was talking about the same thing, the same goal, what it was. And so we put Arena Football University together, and you bring all the front office staff. It's a 3-day program. You bring in the front office staff for 2 days, and they learn how to sell. Okay, what do you do? Tickets, arena, how you get all your stuff together, how do you promote it? Game day operations, how are game day operations set up and all of that. Like I said, whether you're walking to one arena or the next, it should all be the same. And then the last full day of it, day and a half, is coaches. We meet, talk about the season, what they liked, what they didn't like, what we want to change, what rules we want to change. We vote on all of that. What are you guys looking to do? What is your accomplishments? What do you want to get out of this in life? Okay, so I ask them all that. It's more than just the football part of it. It's a life part of it too.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like I said, the coach in Wichita is going to be doing the same thing as the coach in Orlando, because I know what they're supposed to be doing. And I know how they're supposed to be.
Written down too, right? There's a guidebook. It's not just, you shouldn't do this, but we don't have it in writing, so I guess it doesn't have any teeth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have an ops manual. You have a rule book. You have coaches that sign contracts that have fines and all of that in the back of it. It's not just a complete free willy type thing. And that's what they lacked, with that. And I hate to say it, they were sold a bill of goods last year. And it's unfortunate because I played underneath that shield, that AFL shield, and that AFL shield means a lot to me, and you look back here, and stuff that I have here. I mean, that was me. And to see somebody abuse it and not do it the right way was hard, was hard for you to swallow. But we moved on. AF1, great, ready to go, excited about it with a lot of people, the teams, the coaches and everything, the fans, community and all that. So it's going to be a great season.
It was very I can't think of the word right. This escaped me. But the branding for AF1 was very slick, meaning it kind of, to me anyway, as a casual consumer, is it flowed very nicely from what used to be to what is. It's so similar that it works, and I'm glad that you're able to, for the most part, although some of the tree need to be pruned, your roots are still there in terms of it. You know what you want to be, and it still connects the past with the future. So I think you nailed it in terms of branding.
Yeah, and I think that was, I think that was perfect. And because when you look at the logo, it's different, it's distinct, but it still has that old AFL to it. Still brings that nostalgia and things from the past. And I think one of the biggest things that we wanted to do was continue with the past players and all that in that community or whatever. I'd love to see, to have, Orlando Predators, 1998, world champion night, and bring all those old guys back and, and let players see what it meant to them and, things like that, that I think is important. But like I said, I could talk for hours and days about this game. I love it. I spent 15 years of it playing, another 5 coaching, 20 years of my life doing it and doing this now, and kind of the, the front office part of it. And, just like I said, I'm very excited about it.
What's something that is important for the short-term success and then the long-term success of doing this now and really putting it, like you said, as Chris put it, I think it's a great analogy, pruning the tree but saving the roots. What is something that you guys are looking for what's critical to the success of AF1 short term and long term based on what you guys have done so far already?
I think a lot of it is with AF1 and everybody to recognize what it is. Okay. We want to gain all of those fans back. So in the short term, we want the name out there and the name to be recognized and everybody to know what it stands for. Okay. It's like anything else. And I've always said arena football is like NASCAR. Once you go to a game, you're hooked. I never seen NASCAR before in my life besides watching it on TV. I went to a damn race and I was like, holy, this is crazy. But it's the same thing with arena football. And then the kind of the long term of it is to have that stability and to get there. We're going to have an opportunity to, get on TV and do some things like that, like we did last year. In a short term, we got CBS Sports Network to do the playoffs and the Arena Bowl, and things like that. Everybody said that, it couldn't be pulled off. I always have that ace in the hole, and that's Jerry Kurz, because Jerry Kurz can make a lot of things happen. And hats off to that man. But we got a lot of things going, and we're going to grow this. You never want to grow too fast. Okay. Everybody say, oh, I'd like to see, 20 teams, 20. We all would like to see that. But
right.
You gotta grow each year knowing what you can do. Like I told you before, way back in the heyday, we had 16, 20 teams. We were playing on NBC. We had Kurt Warner. I mean, we were doing all this fantastic. We had arena football, video games.
That's right.
All of this stuff, and you want to get it back there, but you got to do it the right way, and you got to be patient, and people have to understand, the long-term goals of what you're trying to do.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think one of the biggest things that is very true is you got to have solid teams. You got to have solid ownership. If you don't have it, you have nothing. As soon as you put a team on a schedule that can't fulfill that schedule, it's over. So that to me, I think it's a pretty critical piece. And obviously, you guys have done your due diligence, and some of the teams that made it over from AFL to AF1. They battled through last year, and quite honestly, earned the right to be back. So I think there's a lot to be said about that because they still believe in it. They believe in you guys too.
Absolutely, and you got to be smart geographically. You got to figure out how you build. I call them quadrants. You don't want to have too many in the Northeast and not enough in the West, and things like that. And I thought we were very, very good with how we pieced this together and how we did this year. And even moving forward, if we can get to 16, next year we could split that into 8s and have 2 conferences of 8s, and things like that. So I'm always thinking about it. I try to always be a step ahead. With everything, once we start the season and everything, I'll start working into 2026 right away and, gathering things and getting things together, during that while we're playing and everything. So we're ready to go during the off season. But yeah, it's a great opportunity, especially for you guys there, like you said, in Albany. Albany's been around forever. I'll never forget in 1993 in Dallas, we're playing Albany. Okay. And the winner, both teams are going to the playoffs, but the winner gets the home field. Okay. Mm-hmm. We beat Albany, so we're going to get a home field game in Dallas. We were playing at the old Reunion Arena at that point in time. After the game was over, the Albany owner came up to the Dallas owner and said, hey, I'll buy the game from you because I'll have 9,000, 10,000 people in the stands. You're only going to have 3. Okay. So our owner comes into the locker room and tells us, well, we're glad that you guys won the game, but we're going to Albany for the first round of the playoff game.
Oh, wow.
What? So we ended up going up there, in that place, you don't go up there and play playoff games and expect to win, not back in that day, when Eddie was there and Mike Perez and, those guys. And we ended up losing 78-59, gave them a hell of a run. But it's just crazy, with that and kind of seeing the involvement of it and, getting back to the Albany stories. But just the number of players that were there, the Derek Stingleys and, like I said, Mike Daly's and Eddie Brown. Eddie's a good friend of mine still. We were at the Firebirds together when they moved to Indianapolis in 2002. But just a mainstay there in Albany. I think it's a great, rich tradition of arena football. Fans are great there. So, I know Mike Horton and those guys, that ownership group, do a fantastic job up there. in the community marketing and everything. So, it's going to be a great place, to see AF1 this year.
I have one more question, and then if you want to, we can definitely do some Albany stories, because again, I remember from back, I think the first game I watched was in 97 or 98 when I was a sophomore in high school, and we went on like a trip on a Saturday with my football team to watch AF. So if you want to do Albany stories for the next hour, that's fine with me. I do have one more question in terms of doing it last year. Just like a story or something that happened in terms of play Albany versus Billings in a mall in New Jersey. Tell me a little bit how that kind of came together and that, if you can, a little bit.
You know what? It was crazy because, most of it's always been where the highest seed obviously gets a home playoff, because that's what you want. You want to be able to draw fans and everything else. So, the old ownership group, G6, Chetty and those guys, they were hell-bent on having it in this mall. Okay. Well, when we heard about it and started thinking, how is this going to happen? How are you selling tickets? So we went with it. The setup was unique. Okay. Very unique with the way that it was. And I think even more unique and kind of how did we do it was getting the net set up, because there was nothing to hang from. You couldn't hang from the ceilings. Okay. So how are you going to get the net set up and all that? Well, that was the mall's responsibility, because they bought the game and this, that, and the other. Well, Luke Combs was playing at MetLife and all of that. So apparently they brought, I heard the story, not, I didn't know if it's all true, but from a pretty good source, they brought the roadies over, and the roadies rigged these and hung them the way they should have been hung to the, specifications that we needed. I mean, you all know that, we had to cut the nets down a little bit and make them smaller because it would not fit in there. But I tell you what, watching the replay of it on TV and everything else, and having the sun come up through the roof and all that, it felt like you were playing in Atlanta or in Arizona with the roof open. It was very unique and all of that. The seating was different and everything else, but you couldn't do it if you were trying to get 10,000, people in there, what it may be with the way it was set up. But it was a unique opportunity. Like I said, we pulled it off.
Sorry, go ahead. I was saying, I think that kind of brings the casual fan almost too, in a way, where it was like, okay, maybe the casual fan, okay, maybe they know what's happening, but okay, whatever. And then they're like, oh, it's happening in a mall? Like, that's, what I mean? Like, the casual fan might pay attention to that because of the uniqueness of it. And you guys obviously were able to take something and turn it into and the game itself was terrific. So
absolutely. I mean, it was a great marketing deal. I wouldn't want to ever do it again, truthfully. I always, like I said, unless, we're going to go play at a neutral site and do some, some good things and all that, I think it ought to be awarded to the home team. That's just the way I knew it. It's the way it's always been. That's what you play for all year long, to have an opportunity to have that at your home venue. And you will know that you're going to get a great crowd and all of that. If you ever have it somewhere neutral, you never know what's going to happen, if you're going to get anybody, or things like that. But, like I said, it was a unique setup, a unique way to end that season. That's for sure.
Now, you can't answer this, I understand. Are you at a point to talk about how the playoffs are going to look in terms of a championship, or is that still a work in progress?
No. So we had that set up. So we'll go 6 teams. Okay. With that and everything. And we'll have, 2 will play, the first 2 will have a bye. Okay. 1 and 2 will have a bye. 3 will play 6, 4 will play 5, and then you'll get it down to 4. Okay. Kind of like it was last year. And then, 1 would play the lowest, the highest seed. 2 would play the next lowest seed, and then whittle it down there. So you'll have, basically, if you're on that 1 or 2 seed, you got to win that one game to get there. And that's the benefit of you being a 1 or 2 seed, and everything else. So that's what makes it exciting. With that, especially with it broken down into, the way the divisions are, and everything, you're going to have a division winner. Okay. Cause you're kind of pulling it like the NFL. Each division has a winner. You got 3, and then it's the next 3 best records. They could all come out of one division. I mean, I hate to say it, but you look at that, I call it the brutal East. with Nashville and Orlando and, Albany. All three of those could get in, but they're all three going to be beating up on each other as well, too. And then you got Wilkes-Barre in there. You never know what's going to happen either. But I think, that's kind of a good way, the way it's set up. You just have the next three best records and then you have the top six teams.
And again, I appreciate all the time that you've given us, tonight. And we hope to be able to talk to you again, maybe during the season, if you get a chance. You say you're on the road, maybe you get a chance to come to Albany. We can talk to you when you definitely come up here. I just wanted to, just to finish it, if you have another Albany story, again, like I said, I've been around this area my whole life. So.
Yeah, I do. So we're up there playing, might have been 98, and I'm coming in high motion, and I'm running a deep route. Our quarterback starts scrambling. So he scrambles and throw, and I'm getting to the wall. Well, I get shoved, by the DB, grabbing me by the back and shoves me in the wall, and I flip over, and I'm 2 rows deep into the wall, right? So as you flip over, you kind of lose, where you're at for a second. I got beer being poured on me. I got popcorn being poured on me. I got, and I'm trying to get out of there as soon as possible, yeah, but that's what makes it fun for the fans and all of that, players into the wall. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever remember seeing a video. I think it was in 2003 when Doug Plank was coaching at Arizona, and we were playing in Tampa, and somebody went over the wall and it split his forehead completely open and all of that.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
I've seen fans, guys running go routes, and I've seen fans reach over the wall like they're catching a pass and not understand what's going on and catch a helmet in the head. Seen all kinds of crazy stuff, with this game. But it's fun. It's fantastic. It's fast paced. It's a fans game. It's very fan friendly, family, friendly with all of that. It doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to get there.
That's critical, man. That's a big deal. It is expensive to do anything with your family.
The music in between, all that. There's a lot of interaction, which is what you need. Like I said, I could speak for hours on it. It's just something that I love, something that I was a part of for so long.
Excellent.
Well, Gary, thank you very much for taking the time. Hopefully, everybody that gets a chance to either watch or listens to this takes back some good information, from your experience and how passionate you are about what you're doing, and hope where this league is going, where the league hopes to go. I think all in all, the future's bright. And again, thank you for taking the time tonight.
Absolutely, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Anytime you want me on, I'll be more than happy.
Excellent. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. All right.
We're still going or no? Mine says live. Mine still says live.